Hey everybody, it is Mama's Wife of One. Thank you guys so much for coming back to my channel or for visiting my channel for the first time if you've never been here before. I am Mama's Wife of One. I'm a content creator. I am a social media influencer. I'm a writer, an editor, and I'm a mommy and a wife. Today we're going to talk about episode 3 of season 3 of part 1 of Bridgerton. Before I get started with my review and recap and some notes that I took, make sure you like this video, share this video, subscribe to my channel, and also comment below. So the episode starts, well, first of all, this episode is called Forces of Nature. And if you are unfamiliar with Bridgerton, if you've never watched the show before, feel free to click on the first video, which was episode 1 of season 3. This is my first season that I'm recapping, but I've watched all the seasons and I watched the spinoff. But feel free to look at that first video if you want a recap of exactly what Bridgerton is about. So the episode starts with Colin running through this beautiful, majestic garden to find Penelope and to confess that I can't stop thinking about you. I can't stop thinking about that kiss. Because if you remember, we ended episode 2 with them kissing because Penelope's like, I've never been kissed before and I may never get kissed. I may never have a husband. Can you please kiss me just so I can say I've been kissed? And they share this amazing kiss and then they depart. So the next opening again of episode 3, we see him running through the gardens looking for her and telling her that I cannot stop thinking about that kiss. I can't stop thinking about you. And she's like, oh my gosh, I'm the same. I can't stop thinking about you either. And they share this beautiful romantic kiss. And I knew, this is my second time watching this episode, but I knew the first time I watched it that this was a dream. Like, I know good and well this isn't real. I just had an inkling. And I knew that, okay, they want us to believe that Penelope is dreaming this because she has been half in love with Colin for pretty much all of her life. And I was like, they want us to believe it's her. I was like, but I'm sure it's not her. It has to be Colin dreaming this because while all of these feelings are not new to her, they're brand new to him because he's never looked at her in that light before. And sure enough, we see Colin wake up covered in sweat, like, and I will say this, if you have never seen Bridgerton, or if you've seen Bridgerton, hopefully you realize that this is a callback to season 1 when Daphne had a dream about Simon. But I thought it was interesting, though, that when Daphne and Simon, well, when Daphne had her dream about Simon in season 1, there were no words exchanged. It was very much it wasn't as graphic, and I think probably because this time we had a man dreaming as opposed to a woman. So for Daphne, at that point, having never been kissed, never having sex, obviously, her dream and her idea of what is sensual is Simon slowly taking a glove off of her hand. Because if you notice in a lot of these shows, or not a lot of these shows, this show in particular, whenever a woman is at a ball and she meets a man, normally she bows to him. She's not really touching him. And if they do touch to dance, a lot of times women are wearing gloves because there's something about that skin to skin contact with another man that's considered scandalous, even if it's just your hands. So in the dream, uh, Simon carefully takes off this glove, and there's this romantic music playing, and her heart starts beating, and you see she's feeling flushed, like, oh my gosh, she's about to touch my hand. And it's very chaste. It's not like, oh my gosh, it's scandalous. But again, I realize now it's because she was the one doing the dreaming and she didn't have any experiences to really make this dream a sex dream. Whereas Colin, he's done, been in some stuff. So he could easily imagine himself kissing her and grabbing her and all that stuff. So that's how the episode starts. So just like last time, the way I did this was I split it up into the characters and wrote down what happened to the characters. So some stuff may be out of order. But we're going to start with Cressida and Eloise. Cressida is the villain of the show, essentially. But this season, we're getting a lot of her background with her parents. It seems like she's an only child. She has been on the march. I think this is like her third year on the marriage march. She has no prospects. So her father wants to marry her off. And his main thing is, yo, if you don't find a husband, I know somebody who would be happy to marry you. The man he has in mind is probably 2 or 3 years, 2 or 3 times Cressida's age. She's a much older man. And if that doesn't work out, then they want to send her with her aunt to live wherever. So it's like, okay, she doesn't have a lot of options. Definitely doesn't seem like she has the kind of support from her family that Eloise has with the Bridgertons. And, so we're focusing a lot on her background. Honestly, I don't care about Cressida like that. So it's hard for me to have any kind of sympathy or empathy for her because I honestly do not care. But in this episode, we see that she is basically trying to figure out who her husband's going to be. Her mother's telling her, like, you don't understand. Your father has cut our allowance in half. Because remember, in the ton, Nobody works. Everybody gets their money, I guess, from inheritances, and the men of the family are the ones who control everything. So if you are the wife or if you are the daughter, whoever, your money is coming from the man. And in most situations, a you're getting an allowance, however much that is. And it seems like this father is pretty, I don't know the right word. He definitely seems mean. He doesn't seem like he really cares about his wife or cares about his daughter that much. So we're seeing that from Cressida. And so she's like, okay, I see Lord Debling. I want Lord Debling to be my husband. Lord Debling is a brand new character. He has made it known that he's looking for a wife. So only thing that we really know about Lord Devlin is that he's very much into nature. He is a vegetarian, so a lot of people make fun of him for that. And it seems like he's gone for long stretches at a time, exploring different countrysides and exploring different wildlife. So whoever marries him will have to be used to being by themselves quite often. So Cressida sets her sights on him just because, hey, he's eligible, he's not bad to look at, he has money, boom. That's how I'm gonna get out of this. So when she talks to him the first time, she's like trying to flirt. He doesn't seem overly impressed, but she tells Eloise, like, you need to help me. I want him to be my husband. So Eloise is like, all right, I guess I'll help you. I have some books on natural history you can read, so at least you can like talk to him about something. So let's see what else happens. I mean, that's pretty much what happens. She borrows the book, she reads up on birds, and she's trying to impress him with her bird knowledge. But one thing, there was one time that they had like a little bit of a spark that I was like, oh, if Debling and Penelope don't work out, Debling and Cressida actually may have a chance because he says something about being away for a long period of time. And thankfully, the places that he goes to are so remote that his family can't find him. And she's like, oh, you don't want to be with your family? He was like, not necessarily. He was like, I wanted to forge my own path and I just needed to be on my own. And that's something Cressida desperately wants. So I was like, oh, that's a major thing that they have in common. And it seemed to kind of pique her interest. And it seemed for the first time, for me at least, talking to a man, it was the first time I saw Cressida be genuinely like at peace and just genuine period. Like, oh, I understand that. Okay, like we can work with that. We can definitely work with that, and we can build from there. So that's pretty much what happened with Cressida. She and Eloise are still hanging tight. So that's pretty much all that happened with her. I'll go more into exactly what happened with her and Lord Debling later on when I get to Penelope section. For the Bridgerton household, the queen has shown favor on Francesca Bridgerton. And when you have the queen's favor, that means the queen is going to basically set you up with somebody. You'll still have everybody in the town looking at you because now, basically, since the queen said, she's the it girl this season, all the men are going to come flocking because, of course, they want to have the it girl on there. I'm like, oh man, that's what's up. Let me get at that. Again, this is just my interpretation. And but it also means that in addition to all the men flocking to you, that means the queen is also going to search high and low outside of the town and outside of that area to bring some men that she thinks are eligible for Francesca. So she picks this guy who's a marquis. I forgot where he's from. He's like from the Netherlands or something, but she brought him specifically there to talk to Francesca. Francesca and he have a good conversation. He seems nice. Pardonnez-moi. He seems nice. And one thing they have in common, they both have 7 brothers and sisters. The problem is that Francesca said, yeah, I love my siblings, but doesn't it feel lonely sometimes, our family that big? He was like, no, actually, I want 8 kids of my own, so that way my house is full of chatter and full of laughter. And she's like, I mean, I guess. I feel like that one comment from Francesca is kind of giving us a little bit of a glimpse of who she is. She is the 6th Bridgerton child. She is the second youngest daughter. So she doesn't really have, I don't say have a place, but I feel like with 8 kids, once you're the first, once you're the first boy, the first girl, after that, you have to do something spectacular almost to figure out what is my place in the family. And I feel like Francesca hasn't really figured that out, especially because she spent so much time away learning piano with her aunt. So I feel like she spent so much time away from the family that she doesn't really know how to fit in with her family. And she feels a little awkward. She's not as bold or as, you know, funny as the rest of them are. So having this guy who's a suitor who seems the exact opposite of what she is definitely kind of throwing her for a loop. So in one of the balls that they go to, she gets away from him just to get some peace, and she manages to not let her mom see her leave, which is great. She's outside and she's just like, oh, I just want some peace. And she's just staring in the garden. And this figure comes up beside her, this black man, And he's like, "Oh, good evening." He's like, "Oh, you like me? I was looking for some peace too. So let's just stay in this silence together." And they stand there, not talking. They don't even introduce themselves to each other, but they just stare at the nothingness. And the fact that he's looking for peace too, automatically like, "Oh, okay, so he wants something I want. I don't know if it's gonna go anywhere, but hmm, okay." And they kind of exchange like little small smiles before she excuses herself, and that's pretty much all that happens with her. And then with Benedict, Benedict had one dance with one girl. So I think one dance, the girl and her mother are constantly looking for Benedict at these parties because in their mind, like, oh, you dance with my daughter, that must mean you want to court her. Benedict does not try to court nobody. He's just not, but he was trying to be nice. So to avoid the mother and avoid her daughter, he corners Lady Danbury at one of the balls and basically tries to talk her up, just like, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" She's like, "I'm not dumb. I know that when you come over here, no one else gonna come over here. I'm basically repelling for all these people, but I'm gonna take it. So why don't you take me for a turn around the room? We can just do a favor for each other." He's like, "Okay, no problem." And if you read the Bridgerton series, you read the actual like book series, the Lady Danbury character is kind of sort of like the one in the show. She is very outspoken. She is extremely blunt and brazen. She's a little meaner in the book. In the book, she also walks with the cane, but she's constantly poking people with the cane and constantly hitting people with the cane. She's someone that people kind of avoid at all costs. But her character seems a little more on the mean side in the book as opposed to the series where she's not mean, she just tells it like it is. She's definitely one of my favorite characters. I've always loved her. So also, Benedict meets a woman who's a widow. She looks still young to be a widow, but she does look like she's a little older than Benedict. He meets her, and one thing I'm learning, I guess, from the people of the ton. We know that the working class is very separate from the people of the ton who are the rich people who don't work. Most of their money comes from inheritances. It's very, male dominated fields. But also, women who are widows, they seem to have a lot more leeway and a lot more freedom than single women and married women. Single women, your goal, at least what the ton tells you, that if you are single, you're of age, your solitary mission is to find a husband. If you're a married person, your solitary mission is to cater to your husband. If you are a widow, you've done your job of catering to your husband and now you can live your life. Nobody's looking at you to get remarried. Nobody's looking at you. Nobody's looking to see like who you're dancing with at a party because you're a widow. You've already fulfilled your mission of having a husband and or having children. So it's like, oh, you're straight, just like Lady Danbury. She's a widow. Nobody looks at her and pays attention to who she's talking to or what she's doing and all that stuff. Nobody looks at any of that stuff. So Benedict seems to like her, definitely likes her honesty. He likes how comfortable she seems to be in her skin. She seems like a very confident woman. And I think he also likes the fact that she seems to think outside the box and just seems very free spirited. And they share a dance at the ball, and you can tell that he's very interested in her because she's unlike any woman that he's ever met before. So let's see what else. Oh, my exact words in these notes are at another ball, Violet meets a fine black man. Because that's exactly what he was. So she's coming out of the carriage and her gloves fall. So she's reaching down to pick up her glove, and this black man gets there first. And he's like, "Oh, we seem to have dropped something," or whatever he said. I'm sure he said that. And basically, he was like, "Yo, here, shorty, I found your glove." And she finds out that's the brother of Lady Danbury. None of us knew that Lady Danbury had any siblings because in the shows, in the previous season and in Queen Charlotte, we know she had 3 or 4 kids, and we know she had a husband who was just like Cressida's situation, was like 2 or 3 times her age. That's all we knew. And we knew that her family is from, I think it's Sierra Leone. We know that. That's pretty much it. The fact she had a brother, Violet didn't know she had a brother. We didn't know she had a brother. His name is Marcus. He is a fine piece of man candy. And he seems to kind of be interested in Violet. Like they definitely have a very easy rapport when they're talking. And it's also very abundantly clear that Lady Danbury does not like this dude. Anytime she's looking at Violet, she smiles. As soon as Violet turns away, she's like, so we know Lady Danbury don't like this dude. I'm sure we'll find out later why, but it's great seeing Lady Danbury kind of let her guard down a little bit because her facade is always like the strong willed, I got this. And so when she's like annoyed or irritated, we don't get to see it too much. So it's really great to see that from her. At the same ball, Eloise, there's a moment where I can tell that Eloise is missing, not Penelope specifically, but missing her friendship with Penelope. She sees all of these girls her age who are either dancing with men, they're talking to guys, or when they're by themselves in clusters, they're talking about their wedding dresses. And she's just like, I'm not interested in any of this stuff. And honestly, this isn't in my notes, but this is just a question, I guess, or a statement. I don't know what Eloise actually into. She seemed so about the first two seasons, all about women's empowerment and women using their voice and this and this and this and this and womanhood and just, women's rights. Very much about that. This season, there's none of that. But she also isn't trying to find a husband and doesn't seem like she's interested really in courting. So it's like, what is her interest right now? What is she about? And I feel like we're not really getting any of that from her. And maybe that'll change because it's only episode 3. But I haven't really seen that from her. So I'm really hoping we get back to the Eloise that we all kind of fell in love with the first two seasons. And let's see, anything else happened with these Bridgertons? Not really. That's pretty much from the Bridgertons. The Mondrick family. This is the black couple who have been in season 1, 2, and now they're in season 3. And now they're the new people of the time, right? So they have all this money. They're going to balls. One of the balls they go to, the woman, Alice, the wife, I finally learned last week, in this beautiful dress. And it's important that the women are admiring her dress because the first ball she went to, she's wearing the old clothes of her old aunt because she's like, oh, well, this is the status quo. This is what my aunt wore. I don't want to really rock the boat too much because we weren't really supposed to be in here. But her husband convinced her, like, hey, whether it was a mistake or not, we're here. This is our life. So you need to embrace it. She was like, you know what, you're right. I need to embrace it. I need to be myself. So she treats herself to a brand new wardrobe and looks beautiful, looks phenomenal. And they're talking to Colin at the ball and they're talking about, she's like, I thought what you did for Penelope was very admirable, trying to help her find a husband. That's a mark of a good friend. And it's a great conversation. And Will's excited, the husband, because he's been invited to a hunt. And one thing I noticed, and I'm sure I knew this already, I just never focused on it, watching the scenes go by in episode 3, I'm like, okay, these men do not work, right? They clearly go to balls. They like to promenade, which is basically just walking around a garden. And I think maybe one episode last season, they went to like a horse race. They went to a hot air balloon thing today, but it's like, y'all really don't do anything but promenade and go to balls. Like, there's really, and then the women, especially if you're single, all they do is sit at home. If the women aren't out promenading with their friends or with a suitor, they are sitting at home in their drawing rooms, I guess basically the living room, waiting for men to call on them. How depressing is that? These aren't the days of cell phones or phones, period. So they're not calling somebody like, hey, you up? Or, hey, can I, stop by real quick? Can I come do whatever? That's not happening. So literally you're sitting there waiting. And then when a person comes, they can't just knock on your door and walk in. They come knock on your door. Someone comes to say, hey, who are you? What you want? They're like, oh, I'm here to see Mom to Wife for One. They have a calling card. So on the calling card, they write down who they are. Then they'll come find me like, yo, Mom to Wife One here. And I'll look at it and be like, oh, it's dad of two, husband of one. I'd be like, well, and then I can either say, okay, no, send him away, or I can be like, all right, he can roll up in there, and then he'll come in and then we'll chit chat. But it's just the whole thing is very formal. But again, that I would be sitting there in the drawing room waiting for someone to come, and then when they come, I gotta feed them. It's just a lot. I couldn't survive in this day and time, I don't think. But while the Modric family are enjoying their riches, because who wouldn't? Will is finding it a little difficult to balance going to all these balls and tending the bar. If you recall, in the second season, he and his wife bought a gentleman's bar. It's been successful. A lot of people come there from the ton, and he loves it. This is his own business. The first time owning a business. It's all his. He loves it. So he misses a ball that his wife goes to tend bar because he's missed it so much. And one of the patrons comes to him and is like, hey, you still own this bar? He was like, yeah. He's like, I can't wait to see you on the hunt. It's going to be great. And basically the dude was like, look, let me keep it real with you. You cannot own this bar and still be a member of the ton. People of the ton do not work. So basically, you're going to have to make a choice. And he says, if you shoot as well as you pour a drink, then I look forward to seeing you on the hunt. But basically, letting it be known that if you continue to have this bar, continue to pour these drinks, you continue to run this business and basically work, you cannot be part of the ton. And so obviously that's putting Will in a position because he doesn't want to get rid of it. And he hasn't made a decision about the end of the episode. It's just like a shock, like, oh, wait a minute, what? Like, I really have to choose? Why would I have to choose? I thought I could do whatever I want. And the guy tells him, you can do whatever you want, but there's limits to everything. That is extremely profound, too. Words to live by. So that's all that happens with them. With the Featheringtons, after the last episode where Penelope, as Lady Whistledown, told everybody in the town about how Colin was helping Penelope find a husband, she stayed away for a little bit out of society, just kind of stayed home because she was embarrassed, didn't want to bring more embarrassment to her family. Eloise takes the time to visit her and basically says, look, I haven't seen you around for a while. I want to apologize for my potential part in that rumor getting spread. That wasn't my intention. And again, this is an olive branch of sorts. Eloise isn't ready to forgive Penelope all the way. She's not ready to be her friend fully, but she still obviously cares for her if she's able to come to her and say, hey, I'm sorry. And nice, sweet little moment. So when they go to another ball, Penelope's mother basically encourages her to keep a low profile. She's like, look, hopefully something juicy will happen and nobody's going to focus on you anymore, but just keep a low profile. She's like, don't worry, mother. I'll find a wall to hold up, like, whatever. Things have been tense with her mother for a minute. And again, this season, because Penelope's a leading lady, we get to hear her talk a little bit more, not just through Lady Whistledown's words, but we get to hear Penelope as the character really express herself to her mother, to her sisters, to Colin, just the people around her in ways we've never really experienced before. We got a tiny glimpse at the very end, like the last scene of season 2 when she blew up at Eloise. But other than that, Penelope is always quiet because she's always observing what's happening around her. And so we don't get to really hear her opinion. So it's very interesting kind of seeing that dynamic with her mother. It seems like every episode, things are kind of building up more and more. So I'm sure that'll get juicy a little bit later. And while that's happening with Penelope, Prudence and Philippa, her sisters, they're trying to get pregnant and they're trying to ensure that they're pregnant with a boy because once they have a boy, that son will become Lord Featherington. And right now, they don't have a male heir to run the household, and that's what they need. Because if they don't have a male heir, if none of them have boys, then the crown, I guess represented by the queen, will basically assign a man to be over the household. It's really weird the way all that works. So because Prudence and Philip are trying to have a boy, the housemaid of the Featherington house gives them this nasty green liquid to have a boy, but of course it makes him throw up because it's nasty. They decide to stop taking the potion, but at one of the balls, Philippa gets really sick and has to leave to throw up, and the mother realizes, oh my gosh, she's pregnant. So we have at least one Featherington baby that's on the way from Philippa Featherington, I believe is the middle child. In addition to that, well, no, I'll say everybody else first. So Colin and Penelope, right? Basically, after everything that happens, Colin and Penelope run into each other while they're promenading, because again, that's what all these rich people do when there's not a ball man. They better do it than to walk around and look at each other. They slip away, and Penelope basically tells them we can't have our lessons anymore because I was really embarrassed and I don't want to embarrass my family like that. And I'm just gonna have to take everything that you taught me and I'm just gonna have to put it into action. And even though my prospects are dropping as we speak, I'm gonna keep trying to have a husband. And while she seems kind of not aloof necessarily, but she definitely isn't showing any signs that she was um affected by the kiss at all. Where Colin definitely is feeling a little awkward. And, of course, he's not going to confess that, oh, I can't stop thinking about the kiss and I dreamt about you. And girl, that was so, whew, that was a wild stuff, girl. He's not doing that, but you can tell that it's impacting him more than it's impacting her. And the fact that she's like, oh, we can't have the lesson anymore. He's like, oh, we can't. Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. It's kind of letting her lead the conversation, right? So after this conversation, he sees her at a ball. He tries not to say anything to her, but he definitely can't keep his eyes off her for nothing. They go to and he sees her talking to Lord Devling. So Lord Devling approaches Penelope while she's like having some lemonade, and they seem to hit it off. And she's just being herself. She's being cheeky, she's being funny, she's being a little sarcastic, but she really is just literally being herself. And she was like, calling us like your advice. I stopped caring about what people think about me and I just talk like I normally talk. And Lord Devling was very smitten. He absolutely loved it. And so they're just having a very casual conversation, and you can tell that he's appreciative of who she is as a person. Colin peeps that, of course, and can't take his eyes off of her and all that good stuff. So they go to this event where there's this big hot air balloon, and basically, literally, the whole event is there's a big hot air balloon, and I guess no one has ever seen this hot air balloon ever before. And they're having a discussion, well, not discussion, but in one of the tents, they're having a demonstration about the engineerings of the hot air balloon, and this is why we created and designed it. And I guess the whole point is that at some point you're going to see the guy who invented it or who is claiming to invent it. You're going to see him fly off in his hot air balloon. So everybody's in a balloon. Everybody is talking, chit chatting. In this moment of before it flies off, Penelope sees Lord Devlin, and she's like, "Oh, he's about to court me. Let me go say hi to him." Actually, no. Let me pause. Before that, she catches Colin's eye and is like, "Colin, come over here." And they go to get some desserts in the tent, and she's telling him like Lord Devlin is showing interest, and so because of you, she's like, he's not bad to look at. He's a man of good character. Like I really think this is gonna work out. While she's talking to him, she's eating a dessert. His mouth zeroes in on her mouth because she licks some icing or something from her finger and she looks around her mouth, right? But it's in slow motion. That scene is almost a direct correlation to season one when Daphne was focused on Simon, who was licking ice cream from a spoon, and she was just focused on his mouth and his tongue. So I thought it was interesting that again we have another throwback to season one with the characters and just how they are becoming infatuated with the other lead. So after that conversation, Colin wishes her good luck. She goes to find Lord Devlin, only to see that he's talking to Cressida, who again is trying to get at him too. So while they're having a conversation, she's talking about how much she loves nature because she's basically quoting things that she read in this nature book that Eloise borrowed from her, that she borrowed from Eloise. And the problem with that also is that while Penelope is there, Eloise is essentially acting like a wing woman for Cressida. So Cressida's like, Eloise, what was that bird that I loved? Eloise's like, oh, the such and such bird. And so Penelope peeps that, and she's already pissed at their friends, but she's also mad that it seems like Eloise is helping Cressida kind of talk to Lord Devlin. So Penelope and Cressida are competing with each other to impress Lord Devlin about how much knowledge they have about grass and trees and nature. And it's getting more and more uncomfortable. It's like neither one of y'all know what I'm talking about. And it's very apparent. And he's just kind of playing along. Eloise looking like she'd rather be anywhere else but there. It's very interesting, but kind of uncomfortable scene. So while they're having this discussion, Prudence and her husband go off somewhere to kiss. And kissing is fine for married people, but you don't really kiss in the daytime. There's not really a lot of public displays of affection in front of people. So somebody catches them kissing and she's startled. She pushes her husband. He falls on something and it's a rope, and the rope gets loose, and the rope is basically connected to the hot air balloon. So when he falls down, the hot air balloon, which has, I think it has like stakes, the staked into the ground, wrapped in ropes. The stakes come up, and now the hot air balloon is almost loose. Colin is the first one to notice this, so he is fast acting. He runs over there, grabs a rope, and yells to the gentleman behind him, "Help me now!" So all these men come running, and they're pulling the rope, trying to like get the balloon to basically the balloon is sitting tall, almost stage-like thing. So they're trying to get back on the stage. So while this is happening, Eloise and Cressida are facing the balloon. Penelope and Lord Devlin, their backs are to the balloon. So Penelope and Cressida, Penelope, Eloise and Cressida see this balloon coming closer. They run off, right? Lord Devlin sees them run off. He happens to catch a quick glance. He runs, and Penelope is left. She sees it, and she's like transfixed for a minute because she only sees Colin pulling the rope, and of course, in pulling the rope, we get to see the muscles and we get to see the strain and we get to see that, oh, he's all man and blah, blah, blah. So she focuses on that, but then she focuses on the balloon that's coming closer and closer to her. She runs and then trips and falls, and the balloon is probably this much away from the chick, right? So Lord Devlin sees that she's falling. He comes back and he throws himself over her to shield her. But Colin and the guys are able to get the balloon before it touches Penelope. So after that happens, Cressida is pissed, like, oh my gosh, Lord Devlin went to help her. So now he's like, that's basically like 1 point for Penelope. So she pretends to hurt herself. She pretends like she hurt her ankle so that Lord Devlin can come and tend to her. Because when she walks past Penelope, she gives her a smug look like, That's like, girl, he cannot be the only eligible bachelor in the entire ton because all of these guys who talk to Colin, none of them got a girl either. But now I realize they probably don't want a girl, so I guess it technically does not make them eligible. But that's kind of what happens. Not kind of, that's exactly what happens. And at the ball, after the balloon incident happens, all of these women are flocking to Colin. Oh my gosh, you're so brave. And I can't believe it. I'm just so impressed. You saved their lives today. Never mind all the other men that helped. Because Colin was the first one, that's what everybody focused on. And so one of the women asked him about where did he get the courage to help out. Penelope is watching him because at this moment, before Penelope even saw him, she sees Lord Devlin, but Cressida sees Lord Devlin at the same time. And this scene was kind of amusing to watch. They're on opposite sides of the ballroom. They see Lord Devlin. They look at each other. They look back at Lord Devlin. They both make a beeline to him, but Cressida just happens to get there first. So while she's there, she's like, Lord Devlin's talking to Cressida. Colin is surrounded by women. I don't have Eloise to talk to anymore as a friend. I'm just standing here basically looking stupid. But she hears one of the women ask Colin again about the courage it took to save everybody and to get the balloon. And what I loved is that in that scene, all of the sound disappeared, but Colin's voice came out crystal clear. And Penelope heard him clearly talking about courage and basically, like, everybody has it. I think it was all just got to dig deep inside to find the courage we need to do what we feel like we need to do. So Penelope hears that clearly from Colin and uses that as her muster to go up to Lord Devlin because like, Cressida leaves and he's supposed to be getting Cressida lemonade. And again, in the time when you are dating someone, you dance with them and you get the lemonade. And that's letting everybody know, I'm interested in this chick. If I got her lemonade, bet I'm definitely trying to hit that, right? So she meets up with Lord Devlin and basically apologizes and tells him, like, all the stuff I said yesterday, none of that's true. I was trying to find something in common with you, but I did not care about nature like that. And I just want to be myself with you because I don't want you, I pride myself in being myself. And he says to her, I appreciate that because what I want, he's like, I don't want a woman that's like me. I want a woman that is very secure in her peculiarities, secure in her uniqueness. That's what I admire. And he ends up giving Cressida's lemonade to Penelope, which obviously Cressida peeps all of this, and now she's upset, like, okay, Lord Devlin is actually interested in her. What the heck am I going to do? So while Penelope is drinking her lemonade and she's like by herself, Colin sees the exchange actually with her and Lord Devlin. He can't stop staring at her. His mother comes up because she can't find Francesca, and he was like, I don't know where she is. He's like, Mom, he's like, what do you hope Francesca gets out of a suitor? And then he questions her about something she said before, where she says, you know, a good romance or a really good solid relationship starts with a friendship. And so he's like, do you still believe that? Like, how does that work exactly? Like, how do you go from being friends to being something more? And she was like, well, your father and I saw it the way. And he just, worked up the nerve to ask me and to talk to me about how he felt. And so while she's talking to him, turns to stare at Penelope, and so does his mama, Violet. Mothers are not dumb. Okay, let me tell you, we know our kids a lot of times better than they know themselves. So she knows exactly what he's asking about, but she knows he's not at a place that's going to come right out and say, I like Penelope, what do I do? So she just follows his eyes and looks back at him. And he's like, well, I hope Francesca gets what she wants. She's like, yeah, I hope we all do. Very cryptic, like, I know what she's saying, son. You don't want to say it. That's fine. So she walks away. But because she told him your father was brave enough to talk to me, he's like, okay, I need to be brave enough to tell Penelope how I feel. So he goes up to Penelope and he's like, Penelope, I've wanted to ask you something all evening. And then Lord Devling interrupts with the dance. So I don't know what he wanted to ask her. Did he want to ask her to dance? Did he want to ask her? I mean, they don't really ask you out. They don't go on dates. So I don't know what exactly he wanted to ask her, but he never got a chance to ask because Lord Devling interrupts and they dance. And then you hear Lady Whistledown's voiceover basically talking about how Lord Devling has chosen, not chosen, but how Lord Devling is courting Penelope Featherington. That's an unlikely match, but oh, how wonderful and exciting is this? And that's pretty much how the episode ends with Colin staring at Penelope while she's dancing and Violet staring at Colin. So that is episode 3. I will say nothing really surprised me this episode. Cressida, I feel like, has done and said so many negative things to Penelope that it's really hard for me to have any empathy for her. But I think in theory and overall, I feel empathy for the women of the time, especially those who are not married, and just in general, like those even like Mama Featherington who are widowed and still have to do everything in their power to keep their family afloat. Like, it has to be really exhausting. It has to suck. The Mondrian situation, I will be honest. We were introduced to Will Mondrich and his wife Alice and their 3 children because he was best friends with Simon from season 1. Simon has not been back since season 1, so why are we still seeing these people? They're not bad characters. I just don't care enough about what's going on with them. Like, it's fine to show them every once in a while. Show them talking to the Bridgertons. They're part of society. Even if he owns the bar, show them talking to the Bridgerton family, maybe talking to the Featherington because they're the main characters. That's fine. I don't need to see any scene with them when they are not around one of the main other characters. You guys are not main characters, and there's nothing wrong with you. But for me, it just seems unnecessary to have these storylines featuring them. I feel like including them makes this show more like a Gilded Age like a Downton Abbey, where you're trying to show different sides of everybody. And it's like, even with Downton Abbey, I didn't mind Downton Abbey, but there were so many storylines of the rich people and storylines of the servants. Like, it was hard to keep track of who did what, who got married, who got divorced, who got, whatever. It was a lot. And so I don't want Bridgerton to turn into that. I like the focusing on the Bridgerton family. Focus on the queen. That's cool. Focus on the rich people, I guess is what I'm saying. It's not care about the monsters. So I was like, didn't really care about that. The Featheringtons. In the book, the Featheringtons are not big characters. Obviously, because one of the books stars Penelope, we have her pop up every once in a while, but not really her family. Like, her family really becomes the focal point in her book. But outside of her book and the other Bridgerton books, we don't hear anything really about the Featherington family, like, at all. They're not essential like that. And I told you the Queen's not in the book at all. So, it's definitely a lot of creative license that's been taken with the show, and all of it is necessarily good. I didn't think the episode was bad. I still like the show. Obviously, I still like some of the characters, but some of them I just feel like it's not necessary to really include them. But some of the notes I took, which wasn't a lot, talked about how Colin's dream was a throwback to Daphne's dream in season one. One thing that I found out just in watching some TikToks and everything, if you notice in a lot of the scenes, Eloise has on gloves or she has like a shawl or something over her arms. And I think episode one or two of the season, she had like a cuff around her arms, like a cuff she put her hands in. Apparently, the real life character, Claudia Jessie, I don't know if she heard it on the show, but sometimes she hurt her arm and she had not a sling, but basically she had like a bandage, a cast. Couldn't think of the word. She had a cast on her, I think her right arm. So in a lot of scenes, you'll see something over both of her arms or one of the arms specifically, so that you can't see the cast. So I thought that was cool because this is my first time really noticing that. Oh, I see where they put this and they put that. So I thought that was interesting. Talked about how Colin was turned on by her licking her fingers, and also was how that's a throwback from season one. Violet talks about how she and Edmund, her husband, started off as friends. I don't know if that is supposed to be a clue to us that possibly we'll get a spinoff with Violet, because so far we had one spinoff with Queen Charlotte. That was an amazing spinoff. It was really good. And we got to get the backstory on the Queen, how she came to be the Queen, about her husband, their love story, how Black people came to be in society because of her. That was great. I thought it was very well done. In that series, however, there is a little Violet Bridge, not Bridgerton. Her name is Violet Ledger, but she's all of maybe 12 years old, so she's not in society yet. But so it'd be nice if we went back to Violet as a character and just have a show about her and her husband and just their love story. It'd be kind of cool. I know a book has been written. I think I'm almost positive Julia Quinn has written a book specifically about Violet and Edmund. So I thought that maybe that was the show's way of saying, we might possibly get a spinoff with them. I'd be here for it completely. So hopefully they do that. Another note. Okay, well, I asked why does Agatha and Marcus not get along? That's the question I have, and I'm sure it'll be answered soon. Another thing I put. This is the last note I put. Needs better friends. I think in this show, the only real examples of friendship that we've seen for young people was really Penelope and Eloise. Outside of them, the Bridgerton brothers, like Benedict and Anthony, seem to get along really well. And then Colin is part of that too. I think they all have a good relationship. But outside of your brothers, I don't see any of them really having friends. And Colin, these guys that come up and talk to him, first they only want to talk to him because he had been traveling all over the world. So they basically wanted to know about what kind of sex he was having. That's pretty much all they cared about. And then once they found out that he was trying to help Penelope get a husband, they were about that. Basically aren't talking about anything important. They haven't shown that they actually want to hang out with him like that. And I don't know how friendship was really viewed back in those days. If people actually had friends, like outside of hunting with people, are you friends with the people that you hunt with? Or are you just friends with people you drink with? Like, I don't know. It just seems like we don't see enough of male friendship. Like, we saw it a little bit in the first season with Simon and Will. Didn't really see it at all the second season in terms of men. And yeah, this season we don't get to see that. And it'd be nice. Like, Penelope already does not have the one friend she had was Eloise. She does not have that as an option anymore. So she does not have friends. She has Colin, kind of, sort of, but that's been muddled since she fell in love with him however many years ago. So she doesn't even have that anymore. Crescent and Eloise, they kind of have a friendship, So that's kind of interesting, I guess. But it'd be nice to see some men in Colin's age bracket actually explore friendship. We have not seen that yet, so that'd be kind of cool to see. But that's pretty much what happened this episode. I thought it was fine. In the next episode, I'm sure we're going to learn more about the beef between Lady Danbury and her brother. We'll see what happens with Penelope and Lord Debling. Cressida, hopefully she finds a way to get a husband or get out because those pretty much are only two options. And yeah, we'll see what happens to everybody else. Pardon me. But again, thank you guys for watching. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to my channel. Make sure that you comment. I love your comments. I reply to each and every one. Comment. And yeah, next time I see you guys, I'll be talking about episode 4. Peace.